by show of, yeah, I can see. Great, great, great. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Yes, my name is Bernard Ondiek, and I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this great webinar. And I believe that it will be a life-transforming webinar for all those people who want to be masters in writing and writing winning grants. So we are going to start in the next 3 minutes to allow others to join. So exactly the next 3 minutes, we are going to begin the program. Thank you and welcome.
I think we can begin. We do have a good quorum to start us off. As the others just join, we can continue.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I would want to appreciate my colleagues from Africa Population Health Research Center, APHRC. I can see we have Dr. Maggie, we have Estelle, and we also have Topista, and we also have a support team on the background that are actually helping us in managing this webinar. So as I said, my name is Bernard Ondiek. I work with the Africa Population and Health Research Center as a virtual academy coordinator. And we are here to help in supporting this webinar. So maybe I'll start by introducing African Population Health, African Population and Health Research Center, because I'm aware that some of us are hearing it for the first time. There are some who have seen it on the social media and they don't know what it is all about. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit of who we are so that you can at least appreciate where we are coming from. So our vision as African Population Health and Research Center is to transform lives in Africa through research. That is who we are. And we were able to do this according to the previous strategic plan that ran between 2017 and 2021 by generating evidence, strengthening research capacity, and engaging policy to inform action on population health and well-being. But in our new strategic plan, we were able to increase the depth of this. And according to the new strategic plan, our mission is to generate evidence, strengthen research and related capacity in Africa R&D ecosystem, and also engaging policy to inform action on health and development. So that's who we are as APHRC. Then we are guided by 4 principles. That is the first one, we don't work in silos. We work with partners and peer organizations. These are across various domains in order to achieve our objectives. And that is why you'll hear us doing co-creation with various partners in order to achieve our objectives. Then we also led by innovation. So we always think big and we also always want to remain in the cutting edge in whatever we do. Then if you look at our programs, our staff composition, and our physical presence, you'll understand that we are truly African, and everything that we do depicts our African nature. Then we always strive for meaningful change in all our engagements and our activities. That means that we always strive to have an impact in everything that we do. That is what APHRC is all about. And our work is actually clustered into 4 themes or 4 main areas. And the first area is health and well-being, which has things to do with nutrition, sexual reproductive, chronic diseases, health systems, emerging and re-emerging infections. Then we also have the human development, and this one actually looks at areas such as the early child development, youth and transition, gender, education, higher education research, among others. Then you also have the population dynamics and urbanization. Again, this is an area that has areas such as the migration, urbanization, aging, determinants of high fertilities, among others. And then our new kid on the block, the data science, which has the measurement and impact evaluation, data science, and also the data system. So those are the areas that our program has been clustered into. Then what is it all about this project or this initiative? So this initiative is actually the Africa Research Support Hub Initiative, which is ARSH or ASH. And the main aim of this initiative is to successfully deliver African-centric research support hub that will provide practical research and grantsmanship skills, which will, at the end of the day, bring about conceptualization, research, and successful fundraising. So we want you to be competent in research, conceptualization, and also to conduct fundraising. That is the main aim of this initiative. So at the end of the day, we will be able to come up with a research support hub. And this research support hub is going to have 3 satellite stations. And the satellite stations will be hosted in, the first one will be in the West and Central Africa, and it will target bilingual, that is French and English. Then you're also going to have the Southern Africa satellite, and we'll have the Eastern Africa satellite. And the main aim of this hub will be to support access to resources, mentorship, will provide light trainings and webinars as what we are doing right now. And then we'll also be able to provide intense training with time in order to support post-PhD, early and mid-career researchers based in the 3 regions. So that's what the project aims to do. And our scope mainly will be, we'll conduct 4 individual webinars, and this being the first one. And each webinar will last around 1 hour and 30 minutes. And within these webinars, we'll be discussing in general the practices in grant writing. That's what we'll be dwelling on in order to develop post-PhD researchers' capacities with the aim of conceptualizing research and developing strong fundable proposal. That's the scope of this initiative. So we'll be looking out for these dates. So we've started with the first webinar series, which is held today. And this one targets the English speakers. And the title of this is Tips for Writing Winning Proposals. Then we are going to go to the next one on May 29, 2024. This one will be conducted, it's the same webinar, but will be conducted in French to target the Francophone African nations. Then we are going to have a second round, now finding funding mechanisms. And this one will come in June 26th for the English speakers. And then we'll have another one in July 31st for the French speakers. So basically, this is how the webinars will be organized. And we encourage you for you to be able to understand the whole process. Make sure you book your calendars for the next webinar so that you may be able to get all the concept. And as we are doing that, we also have, we're also building a community of practice for people who are in the industry and the ones who are learning grant writing. So my colleague Gideon is going to share a link which you can join as we are continuing with the presentation. And in that community of practice, you will be able to share your experiences in this course. And you'll also be able to share if you have any other industry experience or any other additional questions that you're going to have, which might not be answered in this forum, can be channeled to in that community of practice. So we are going to share it on the chat for you to be able to interact with it. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome the speaker, the guest speaker for the webinar today. And the speaker is Dr. Margaret Nampija. So Dr. Margaret Nampija is a medical doctor and a research scientist in the Early Childhood Development, ECD. She is based in African Population and Health Research Center, Nairobi. And previously, she's been working with Medical Research Unit, that is Uganda Virus Research Institute in Entebbe. Dr. Margaret holds a medical degree from Makerere University, Kampala, and a PhD in development psychology from Lancaster University, UK. She is a fellow with the RF and MUII Research Leadership Fellowship. She's one of the few clinical development psychologists in East Africa, and she has won distinctions and prestigious awards and several publications and conference papers on her name. And her research focuses mainly on the health and cognition. She has examined effects early life exposures, including maternal infections during pregnancy, birth asphyxias, child illness, malnutrition, and micronutrient deficiency, the quality of the home and daycare environment on ECD outcomes, and has tested the capability of various interventions to improve the outcomes. And apart from that, she has also worked closely with policymakers, including on strengthening and integration of ECD monitoring and services into the healthcare system. And significant output from our work include locally appropriate psychometric measures, an intervention of improving the quality of daycare in the informal settlements, and a lot of scientific evidence, which has not only contributed to knowledge advancement in the field, but also influence ECD practices, policies, and regulations. So with that, I would like us to welcome her, and we can do that by signs, maybe by claps. I can see thousands of claps coming. So if you don't be left out, make sure your hand counts. So let's welcome her, Dr. Margaret Nampija. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Vernon, for that very kind and warm welcome and introduction. I feel privileged to be part of this initiative to support early and mid-career researchers in building their capacity, in this case, writing winning proposals. So without wasting so much time, I'll upload my slides. Just confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Doctor.
Thank you so much. So let me just put them on full screen. So confirm again if you can see my slide.
Yes.
We can.
Yeah, so good afternoon once again. Just remind you, I'm Dr. Margaret Nampija here to share with you tips on writing winning or compelling proposals. So what I have to, first of all, warn you is these are basics and they are not cast on stone. So there is so much room for more detail, more specifics based on the type of proposal or type of call that you're responding to. So the title is Basics of Research of Grant Writing, Tips, Writing Winning Proposals. So basically, the objective of this webinar, this specific webinar, is to provide some high-level advice or information on questions that you want to ask yourself while applying for a grant. And secondly, I would like to discuss what makes a strong application, a compelling or winning application, grant application. And thirdly, what happens during the entire process? What happens before, during, and after submission of your grant application? So this will take into consideration different types of applications. Some can be career development fellowships, others could be just mainstream research grants. So what I'm going to share with you applies across the board. And this session is targeting what I'd call early career intermediate researchers. So early to intermediate career researchers in global health, that includes master's students, PhD, postdocs, and early or independent researchers. And it's tailored towards applicants from the lower and middle income countries. But just to say that, of course, it extends to any researcher wherever they are. So some of the examples I might cite would be specific to the low and middle income setting, and it's relevant across disciplines within global health and science in general. So just to start with, a good taster to this is when you are planning your proposal, when you're planning your application, that is fitting within your career. So in as much as we can learn all this, it should reflect on how you plan your career, which of course that encompasses how you're going to learn to write proposals, to write, winning or compelling proposals. So don't let chances pass you by. Grab every opportunity that emerges. So as the saying goes, that the only 100% guaranteed way of not getting a job or getting a grant is if you don't even apply. So no grant will be given to you, find you in your room and, fall like, food from heaven. You've got to try, you've got to attempt, and you have to do your best. So then you have to seek advice and listen to it. Don't rely on corridor talk. I don't know this and that. I don't know, Africans, we don't get grants, etc., etc. No, get the facts, hear from people with expertise and experience, attend such webinars like today. Don't rely on hearsay or gossip. Don't be biased. So regularly ask yourself questions throughout the process. So I love this statement, and I think it speaks to everyone. What makes a strong application? If you had to answer that in one sentence, a competitive or strong or compelling grant application focuses on the impact of the proposed innovation, how well it is articulated, the innovative or unique approach to implementing this innovation, as well as your capability to deliver on it. So that is what we are going to unpack: a competitive grant, impact, deliverability, and your capability to deliver the grants that you're proposing. So when you are preparing the grant, on the other side, someone is waiting to assess its competitiveness. So 3 major aspects are considered. So as you prepare, you must take into account, you must pay attention and make sure that you come up with an excellent application, paying attention to person, to place, and project. 3 very important P's, but we also hear a 4th P towards the end. So person, the applicant; place, the environment, your institution and your collaborators; and then the project, that idea you're trying to sell to the funder for them to give you money to implement. So now person, you've got to be to have a strong track record. Your career track record must be strong enough for that stage and for that proposal, research question you're proposing. So if you're an early career researcher, you may not go for the senior fellowships. You want to go for that which is up to that stage. And when you call yourself an early career, early stage, then your CV, your profile should be speaking to that. They expect a certain number of publication and work experience, research experience in that field that you're proposing. So you should have a track record that demonstrates that you are up to date with that level. And then you have to also demonstrate potential, and which is evidenced by the achievements. I've mentioned this earlier. So your research achievements, your academic qualification should demonstrate the stage at which you are at as a person and your competence to deliver on what you're proposing. You should also demonstrate what you have discovered, your discoveries within the area. And this is usually demonstrated by the outputs, including publications. These days, it's not only publications, but you also have to demonstrate other outputs like policy, brief, tools that you have developed, etc. So you should be able to bring all that information out. And when you're asking yourself, as you run for this call, you have to reflect on whether these outputs really speak to your capability to run for this call. And then the vision of how the funding will contribute to your career development and long-term aspirations. So the story doesn't only end at what the proposal, what the research idea is going to do for everyone else. It should also speak to how does this advance your career. And this is usually for fellowships. These other open research calls may not ask for how it's going to build your capacity as an individual. They usually ask for capacity building for researchers within the team and with the collaborators. But for a fellowship, a career development fellowship, you have to demonstrate how that takes your career forward. So you then ask yourself, am I taking advantage of opportunities? Sorry about that. So this does not only start with the call that you have seen. If you have chosen a research career, you've got to be prepared each day, each minute, in whatever you do, to be building your profile, to be out there and be visible and make yourself marketable, if I can use the word. So be proactive and propel your career, propel your brand. And that means that at the time you want to apply for a specific grant or funding, then you are suitable for that, which you're running for. So be proactive, and that speaks to your career, but also speaks to the opportunities out there. Network with peers and other people. It could be seniors, it could be juniors that add to your expertise or to your network. Take up trainings. For example, this could be actual trainings. It could be webinars like this to grow, to develop, to get the skills and knowledge that you need to thrive and to be able to write very competitive proposals. If they are proposals, publications, you be a rounded scientist. And give seminars. As early as a junior researcher, were brought up, were trained to on presentation skills. At a level of a research officer, you come up with an idea and you want to present at a seminar. So you grow, and for each stage, you should be able to achieve certain things. So if it's a level where you can give seminars, participate in seminars and actually, give talks. And by doing that, you're actually training yourself so that at the time you're going for an interview, grant, a funding interview, you are actually over those nerves that can come over and get in the way of you winning and competing well with for the grant. Run for smaller grants. So we start with smaller ones because funders look at how much have you won in terms of grants, and they may not give you the £1 million grant if you don't have a record of smaller ones. So you start with the smaller ones, you get the experience, you get the trust of the funders, and also in research. So that will help build your profile and your skills. Supervised students, again, that diversifies your skills and your networks, and also makes you more relevant than just a researcher working in isolation or in silos. Use social media. These days, there is LinkedIn, there is Twitter or X. Be visible. I mean, when you do something, when you accomplish, or when you have a new tool, a new discovery, don't shy away from sharing that on the media platforms, because again, the funder will punch your name into LinkedIn, and then if they have all these outputs, this information about you, then they can believe you, they can trust you with the funding. So it's not only in publications, it's everywhere. Your output should be seen and visible. So do you have a distinct research identity? We're still on person. So your profile, depending on the stage at which you are you able to demonstrate that this is where you're going? Usually when you're an early research career person, like you're only at the level of masters and you're only been in the field for a short time, maybe you're not expected to have grown a niche or have, defined or cut out a niche for yourself. But even at that level, you can still demonstrate your research interests and where you aspire to be. So it isn't always necessary to have an independent, distinct research identity. This depends on the career stage and also on the area and opportunities. But at some point, as you grow into a more senior person from early to mid, you're expected to have defined your research interests, your niche, and show that you're starting to build a team, and also attaching yourself to colleagues out there in the same field. That's like building your research network and collaboration. So that's important. That's something you don't build in a day prior to applying for the grant. So grant preparations for grant or building your profile is like a lifelong thing that you have to be proactively doing and deliberately, building. So, sorry about that. Did I miss something? So is this the right time? Timing for that call you're running for the funding, or yes, for the research that you'd like to do. So applicants are judged according to career stage, like I said earlier, experience to date, and also accomplishments. So timing and competitiveness, in this, they consider your CV and your project. So you have to provide evidence as much evidence that you can in terms of your CV. Some of us write CVs that assume someone knows you, unless there is a limit. Usually they can say 2 pages of your CV, but even with the 2 pages, don't just write all the publications if they won't fit. Try to identify those that speak the funding that you're running for, those that are very relevant, those that bring out your capability to deliver on that project which you're proposing. So consider to write up the paper and get preliminary data to support your application. So what sometimes happens, you see an exciting call and you want to run for it, but you don't have any background to that research question. You haven't maybe even interacted with that specific field. You have no data, you have no information. So it's like you're starting from scratch. It's usually ideal or even better to have done some preliminary work, some small projects, and those could usually be funded within the institution. At APHRC, we have pipeline ideas. A researcher can get like $10,000 to to just get preliminary data. So it's usually very useful to demonstrate to the funder that this is what we have found preliminarily, and we want to build on this. So if you have preliminary information or data, you actually can outcompete other people who are just going in for without, any prior information about what you want research about. So again, this is not something that you can work on just a day before you submit or a month before you submit. You need to prepare in advance. Yeah. So now the second P is place or the environment, where environment means usually mainstream, the institution where you work, but also the team you work with, the support, you have the resources. So the quality and stability of the environment is very important for you to consider, to ask so many questions while you're applying. So for proposed research, access to the required, is this environment suitable for the research question or project that you're proposing? Are you able to access the required expertise, the equipment, the labs, if you're working in lab, the methodologies, if you're working with genetic data, is there bioinformatics lab and expertise? Are there computers and programs that you need to use? So that all forms part of the environment. Do you have collaborators? No one is expected to have all the expertise that is needed to do a specific project, unless it's really a very thin or very small type of project. So a lot of projects are cross or interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. So it's okay and it's very allowed to have collaborators, to call colleagues and collaborate so that they bring that expertise that you need to complement your work. So does that environment have networks, or do you have the necessary networks to do this work that you're proposing? All that is defined under the environment or place, the second P. So is the environment still suitable for your career development towards that which you're pursuing? So certain times you might want to pursue a different dimension or direction of your career, but where you are located, they don't really, it's not within their scope, or they're not yet, having that type of research. You may need to move, or you may need to find collaborators, supervisors, or mentors outside your environment. Or if you're planning that in advance, you may have to take courses or training for you to prepare you for that particular field or area of research that you want to do. So again, it takes us back to being proactive, being deliberate on your research career as a person. So is the environment or is the institution the right place for to support you and your research? So this is what I've just been talking about. Can it support your career development? Can it support the type of work that you want to undertake? So should I stay or should I go? I mentioned that earlier, maybe I don't have to spend a lot of time here. You have to judge where you are and whether you will get the necessary support, expertise, the labs, etc., resources for you to conduct this research, or if not, do you have to physically move? Sometimes the moving is not you to move to another institution, it's just to bring in the resources, or you may actually consider moving to a different lab or a different research team, totally outside your organization. Yes. So am I talking to and working with the right people? We've talked about collaborations, we've talked about supervisors and mentors and networks, even peers. It's not always senior people, even peers. You could be at the same career stage, but they bring in an expertise that is complementing your expertise to be able to conduct this type of research. And before, of course, you conduct it, you need to demonstrate the funder that you have a competitive, competent team. So identify and approach supervisors and mentors to suit your career stage. Identify someone you trust and respect, but who will also challenge you to grow. So we are talking about early and mid-career researchers where you really need, still need a significant amount of support to guide you on your career, to make decisions. So someone you trust, someone you're free with, someone who is open to you, someone who will tell you the truth and will be open for you to grow and to develop your career. And even on your proposals, someone who will have time for you to read your proposals and advise. So meet with them and discuss ground rules and on this particular proposal, but also someone who is ready to advise on your career in general. Yeah. Carefully, the bottom line is you have to carefully consider who you work with. Good mentors make good mentees. When you see a good researcher, very competent and accomplished, when you dig back to who mentored them, you actually find very strong, very open, very generous, very good mentors who mentored them. So you have to be careful who you work with. You have to choose your mentors, your supervisors very strategically. So the third P is the project. So the research proposal, and this is usually the heart to everyone. I think we focus a lot on the research question, on the project, on the idea, on the innovation. I think it is at the heart, but the other two Ps are also as equally important, especially for fellowships. And even for other ordinary mainstream research grants, the environment and the person are also very important. So the quality of the research question, where quality in this case is not just the way you say, oh, this is a good research question. First of all, it must be important. And with that, we mean, how does it improve how does it advance science? For example, is there new information? Is it justified? Is it filling up a research gap? Is it addressing a public health issue or knowledge gap or practice or methodology? What is the importance? What is the ultimate impact of this research that you're proposing if it is done? And if you can answer those questions, either scientific advancement or public health advancement or both, or even it could be an innovation that you're proposing to increase capacity. So it should be able to ultimately address or demonstrate an impact in science, in public health, or even policy. So that it must be important, impactful, and you must be able to articulate the impact or the importance. And that's what speaks to the quality of the research question. Is it scientifically grounded? So then when you are still, again, thinking about your research question, you're connecting the dots. You usually are expected to state your research hypothesis. Is it a strong research hypothesis? Is it still scientifically grounded? Is it based on some evidence? We've talked about preliminary data. So if you have some preliminary data, you can confidently put down your research hypothesis based on what we found. I think this is what it's pointing to, but we need bigger data. We need more evidence to prove this or to explore this more. So it has to have a clear outline. Your research proposal, the project, must have a clear outline of your aims and objectives. So why are you doing this project? What are the aims and specific objectives? What is the ultimate goal of this research? And it must be supported by a rigorous study design and methodology. So the research question, the research objectives and aim, are you applying the appropriate research design to answer those research questions? Are you using the appropriate measurement tools? Are you not using the tools that have been overtaken by time? Are you using the modern tools that other people are using? Are you articulating the outcomes clearly? And also the data analysis, because you have to demonstrate how the data, if it's quantitative or qualitative, whatever it is, how you're going to analyze the data. Are you using robust analytic approaches? And have you thought about the practicality or in terms of ethics? Is it a type of study that will be acceptable out there if it's not ethically in order, and then the ethics say, no, this cannot be done? I mean, the funder cannot risk all that. So these are the things you have to always think about. What you're researching about, what is the question, why is it important, how are you going to do it, the methodology and design, the whole approach, how easy is it to get the participants, are you articulating all that properly into a story that can be understood? And also, if someone else was going to do it, can they replicate your proposal, your research, based on what you have explained? So that is PE project. And in addition to importance, is it feasible? Is it deliverable, the project that you're proposing? So what's the feasibility of this in terms of the approach? And in terms of you leading it or your team, do you have the available resources? And in this case, we talk about the funding. You're running for a funding of $500,000 but then the work itself, when you put it all together, it could be like $2.5 million. So that is not feasible. That wouldn't be practical in $500,000. So as you prepare your proposal, you have to cost and see, does this work fit in the amount, the cap, the maximum amount that is being, given by the funder? Of course, the budget must be part of the project description. You have to show that everything has been considered in the budget. So over the time course of the application, you have to demonstrate how feasible all the things that you have mentioned. And when you're describing your approach, it should read in a way that the reviewer will be able to follow the steps as if you're actually doing it. So it should be real, it should flow, and it should be very, very clear. It should demonstrate feasibility. We've talked about preliminary data. If you have it, you can keep constantly referring to those preliminary data that you found. And also risks and contingencies. Many times people avoid talking about their risks because they feel that might disadvantage their application, but it's good to be realistic, because as you think about the risks when you're planning your proposal, your research, then you reflect on how this could be mitigated, and actually that can help you change the design if it was that type of approach that has a lot of risks, or not getting the patients, or not even implementing what you want to undertake as a project. So think about the risks and how you can mitigate them. Some of the risks will remain, so you have to declare them in the project, but also demonstrate how those will be mitigated, whether you have a plan B in case such risks appear, because no funder wants to risk their money. They give it to you and then it comes to nothing. So you have to think about that. And also, it's important that the appropriateness of the resources requested. So you ask for funding to do a particular, to answer a specific research question. That must always align, I've mentioned that already, in the budget. So don't introduce other things in the budget that were not in the narrative or in the project proposal. So, and if sometimes you have already some funding, or you're building or you're nesting your study within another bigger research, it's also important to declare that, so that the reviewer is aware that in as much as I'm asking for 50,000, there's already a bigger project we are riding on, and so we can accomplish, or we can implement this work within the 50. US dollars. We talked about the collaborations, resources, and any equipment or environment. I want to repeat that. So key point to consider: think through your ideas. These are some of the quotes that come out by reviewers. One reads like, they have come up with a brilliant but untestable hypothesis already. That one can make the board just put their pens down and say, put it aside, let's move to the next one. So it speaks to the fact that it's not feasible to test these research questions or the hypothesis. So think through your work, and sometimes you think through and you come to the end of your thinking. Share your proposal, your idea with someone else, so that they can have another opinion of it, and then they also, give you input or feedback about it. So another quote is, the applicant says that this is completely novel, which is of course true if you ignore all the previous work that has been done in this area. Again, this means that you didn't read around, you're claiming to be innovative, but actually a lot of work has been done with regard to that research question, and there will be no impact for you or for this research that you want to undertake. So again, your proposal could be put aside just because it lacks innovation and because you haven't read about, find out what has been done and what hasn't been done. Be realistic. One quote from the reviewers, of course: the work described in this application is overambitious. It could not be achieved in the lifetime of the investigator. That would be the worst. Even if you lived longest, this is something that you cannot accomplish, you cannot deliver on. So in as much as we are researchers, sometimes you want to do everything in one project proposal. Be mindful and be realistic. You can only do so much. First, what limits you is the amount, the resources, but also time is also part of the critical resources. So this is a 3-year project, and then what you're planning to do is a program of maybe 15 years. You definitely shoot yourself in the foot. So be realistic and save the other ideas for another application. So it involves techniques with which the applicant appears to have no prior experience and for which no preliminary data are proposed. So we've talked about preliminary data, we've talked about previous experience in the field you're going for. Take advantage of the small pipeline grants. Those ones accept you to be a novice in an area, but of course you have to also demonstrate that you're working people who will be mentoring you. So yeah, it's very important. And other key points to consider is be clear, tell, articulate a clear story. Clarity is very important. I've been a reviewer for one fund I won't mention, but some of the things I read, by the time you get to 3/4 of it, you're feeling headache, you're confused, you're like, okay, what are they trying to say? Like, what is this? So you read over again to see that you understand. You remember, funders are only reviewers are only volunteering. Usually they're not paid to review these proposals, and they can have like 3 to 5 proposals to review. So clarity is very important. However scientific it is, try to put it in a way that someone will only Google the word that cannot be broken down into simpler terms. But if it's about grammar, construction, and ordering, just make the narrative read in a good story, saying that someone can actually see what you're doing in the field or imagine what you'll be doing in the field by just reading your proposal. So clarity is very important. Avoid using jargon, using words that will be hard or will be misinterpreted. Be straightforward and avoid long sentences that become ambiguous. So clarity cannot be overemphasized. Have a backup plan. We talked about risks. So what if this hypothesis will not work, or what if your assumptions will not be? So you've got to think through, and again, that speaks to having your work being reviewed by your peers and your supervisors and your collaborators, and also give yourself time to reflect on this proposal research question. So there is no alternative plan. Should the proposed approach not yield information relevant to the hypothesis? So if a reviewer raises such a comment, just know there is a big risk, and high risk proposals and would not be considered as very competitive. Whereas someone has a low risk proposal and you present yourself which has a high risk, then just know chances of winning are slim. Proofread and spell check, we've talked about that. Clarity, grammar, writing. Poor writing, referencing, and proofreading of this application significantly detracts from its overall quality. So again, I think that would be giving away your good proposal if all the boxes are ticked, but then you have a poor writing style, you have a good idea, it's very innovative, but how does it even become a good idea if it's not clear and is poorly presented? So presentation is very, very important. Proofread and ask people to proofread for you. Sometimes you may need to pay someone out there to proofread your proposal for you, but usually within the team, someone should have, captured all those things. So we've talked about 3 Ps: the person, the place, and the project. There is a 4th P, which is preparation. So some of the things we've already touched on when I was describing how you prepare yourself, especially person is not a one-day thing to prepare. The environment, that one you also need time, and the project also needs going backwards to get preliminary data if you need to. So preparation, now this is for this particular writing, and for if it's an interview, how do you prepare? So know your audience. So you're running for a call in global health and specifically looking at genetics, and maybe the call is focusing on genetics, for example, of mental health. So you'd imagine that the reviewers will either be mental health, will be genetics, or will be both. Know your audience and write accordingly. And of course, at the interview, you're going to get all of the experts. I mean, in addition to the mental health, the global health, and the genetics and bioinformatics, of course, you have other things in there. So know who you're speaking to, and package or present you prepare your proposal, your project description accordingly. Give yourself enough time. We've talked about that already. I won't repeat, but write early in advance. Avoid submitting on the date. I don't want to share my experience, but just to mention a bit is, there is this application I worked on for the longest. I mean, as soon as, even before the call opened, I knew it was coming because they're one of those regular. But for some reason, I was delayed, and I found myself around this time, it's about 4, I only had 2 hours left to the deadline. This is a long form, pages and pages that actually completed everything. But then when you change this, you have to go back and change something else. So I found myself working last minute. It wasn't a good experience. Give yourself time, enough time. And in the system, there are certain things that you might find if you're working last minute, and that could be catastrophic if you can't go forward, because you then realize you need a letter from someone. So give yourself enough time to prepare, to think through, to reflect, to avoid rushing last minute. So check the remit and eligibility. Sometimes we see a call and we're so excited, we don't read the information about it. Again, as soon as you see a call, if it's not a regular call, read the detail in time and read to understand, and also you start preparing there and then, whether you're eligible, the scope of this work, like everything you need to know. They usually provide it. Provide all the information. Now you are into the writing, provide all the information, following the instructions as closely as possible. Of course, there could be some diversity. You can be innovative or creative in how you write, but make sure you're addressing, you're sticking within the broad instructions that they give. If they say maximum is 200 words on justifying the location, 200 words. And usually systems do not allow more than that. So you can't get past that if they are 250 and they're meant to be 200 words. Check and check again, also by others, your proposal, the English, the writing, the formatting, the presentation really. So that means you again give yourself time to prepare. So if you're doing last minute, it's not possible to keep checking and checking again. Attend funder webinars and send inquiries as required. These days, funders are no longer very, what's the word I can use? The gap or the space between funders and the world out there, the researchers is kind of becoming warmer. Previously, you wouldn't even be expected to write to a funder for a specific inquiry. These days, you can actually write to Welcome Trust or MRC and say, oh, we have this idea. Do you think it would fit within the remit of the call that has been sent out? Or you can ask anything. So they are very open and they are very supportive. And so attend the funder webinars. It's becoming common practice that calls are sent out, but then ahead of the calls being opened, or even when they've opened, they hold webinars for people to get more information and ask as many questions. So it's very important that you attend those webinars and ask questions that you have. Again, that speaks to the fact that maybe you have read about the information they've sent out, and then you have, questions around your idea or whatever you want to know more about it. So get all the information. Everything should fit together with no gaps. It speaks to the narrative. Don't write ideas that are disjointed, objectives that are not connected, places and collaborators that are redundant. So everything should speak to each other. It should be jointed. So do this with your supervisor and mentor. So I think gone are the days when someone can write a grant proposal alone. I don't see that commonly. You can't work alone. Usually you work with teams. Even if it's a fellowship, you write the idea, you share with your supervisors. If it's a mainstream research grant, again, you have a team. So you can't work alone because there's a limit how much your brain can think. You may be very brilliant, but you need another brain, another opinion to read through, to think through your idea. Check submission format, the required appendices, making sure that you have everything well in advance. And if you need institutional support later, as I mentioned that earlier, or references, start the process early and approach people in time. You know, the external factors can be frustrating if, for example, you write to a collaborator and say, oh, we need an institution later from your university. So that they have to process that. Maybe the head of department is on leave. And if you're doing that last minute, that can be very frustrating. So yeah, get everything you need early in advance. So what happens before and after you submit? So before you submit, I've talked about the preliminary stages. Some research grants or calls ask for a letter of intent, just a 1-page or 2-page, just to screen through the ideas. And then after that, they'll call for main application. So that is more detailed. Then you submit, you prepare. They usually give you like a few weeks or a month to prepare that if you've been shortlisted or your idea has been selected. And from there, it goes through, when you submit your full proposal, it goes to an expert review group. And I've talked about the multidisciplinary team that they invite on the board to review your application. And if you go through, I mean, after that, if your proposal scores highly, you're then invited for an interview. So some interviews are virtual, some interviews are face-to-face, while some interviews are just a written rebuttal. So they send you comments, and then you're supposed to answer back in a specified time. So then they're also external reviewers. So you get that feedback from the peer reviewers. And then I've talked about the interview. And after the interview, they give you, it's usually a month or so, or 6 weeks, or even earlier, depending on the funder. They will let you know whether you are successful. So that's the whole process. After submitting, this is what you expect. Not all funders have interviews, usually fellowships, and some calls, they call your team for an interview, but not everything. Some funders are 1 stage, some funders are 2 stage, or even 3 stages. So it depends on what type of funding it is. But all that information, of course, you know when the call comes out, the call information should be able to tell you about all this. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nampija, for
Any
that
questions?
excellent presentation. You under-promised and you've over-delivered.
Thank you.
Yeah, you warned us that it's a basic, but we've really dived deep, and thank you for that. And my take home is that the cycle, you need to plan, you need to have the person understanding the person, the place, that is the environment, the project. You need to be sharp in research, proposal writing, and then you also need to do a thorough preparation. And then one thing also that caught me was you need to seek advice and listen to it. Don't rely on gossip, which I agree with. Most of the time, we rely on gossip that grant writing is difficult. You have to fail 1,000 times before you can get a grant and all that. So thank you so much. So at this juncture, I'm going to invite questions from the participants. I know there are some who have already written the questions, and Topista, you're going to help us to be able to share the questions so that the panelists can be able to answer.
Okay, so I will read the first one. There is one in French. I think Estelle can just check and answer. But then in the meantime, I will read one from the chat box. Can you share some sites or organizations or names of smaller grants we can explore, especially for early career researchers? And then there is a second one. Must the preliminary data collected be published? And then what parameters do I have to fulfill to be considered as an early career researcher? And then we have, someone is saying, can we get the manuscript? And then we have, on having a backup plan, I find it tricky, especially with the word limit that is usually characteristic of grant proposals. Is it possible for someone to include backup plans for all possible failures or risks? I think you can address those as we wait for more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Topista. I might have missed 2 questions there in the middle. I think there were 4 or 5. I heard about the small grants that people can run for.
Yeah.
These are usually sometimes called early career grants, or sometimes the word pipeline can come in there. But those are usually small grants in the tune of 50,000, 10,000, 50. or small foundation grants like I'm trying to remember Jacob. Is it the Jacobs Foundation? They usually give small grants for early careers. So there's no specific, I mean, all funders, I think, give out career development or early career research grants. I can say all, because even NIH, they do have small, the R20, it's not R21, R21 is a bit more. So when you look at the funder profile, you're able to identify those startup grants or early career development grants. So just do that. Yes, I can't have all the list of head. Yes. And the second question, Topista, was?
Must the preliminary data collected be published?
Not really, but if you collect the data, why don't you publish it? That said, I think if, for example, you only completed your preliminary research or project just 2 months ago and you haven't yet managed to publish, you have the information, you have analyzed, and you see what it says. It's very okay and very in order to say, we have conducted this research. You can put in the brackets, not yet published, but it shows that they will believe you. So I don't expect that someone would think you're making it up. So, but ideally, it would be good if it is published. If it's not, you can still use it.
Okay. And the next one is, what parameters do I have to fulfill to be considered as an early career researcher?
So it should be the other way around. What makes you an early career researcher is how much you've accomplished. It's not the chronological age, it is the career development age for you. So if you have just done a master's, it could be 50 years, but your career is like at a master's level. I'm just giving an example with all respect. And at the master's level, you have maybe published 1 or 2 papers or even more, but you're not expected to have like 100 papers. Or you could, if you've been in practice and not really so keen on advancing your career. So what defines early career is how much you have accomplished in terms of research. So, and how long you have been in the field of research and your expertise. So I think I've answered the question.
Okay. And then the next one, what makes one proposal be selected over the others?
Okay. I would have to repeat the whole presentation. But like I said, a competitive, a compelling, a winning proposal, one that stands out. I mean, they receive so many applications, is if it stands out in terms of the what are you researching about, the why, what is the impact, and is it well articulated, and the how is it going to be implemented? Does it have robust methodology, design, etc.? Is it the rigor is also on the how, scientifically, is it something viable? And then we talked about impact and the other, the other qualitative things around it. Is it, do you package it well? Is it interesting? And then you, the person, and then the place. So the 3 Ps, and then at the heart of the Ps is the project: innovativeness, impact, etc. So the innovativeness could not only mean the idea, it could be in the methodology, in the approach that you're using. So what is innovative, what is new, and how is it adding to advancing science or public health or whatever it is.
Okay. And then there is this one that says, is it possible for someone to include backup plans for all possible failures or risks?
Yeah, the straight answer is no. So you can't back up for everything, but at least there are risks that can be negotiated. And it's not a one or nothing. I mean, if such a risk shows a one or nothing, that if this risk actually happens, then it will ruin the entire study. So please go for a different question or see how you can go about that. Don't risk, because the funder will also see that. So given yourself time to reflect and also to share your proposal with someone else so they can punch holes through it, and then you discuss all those risks. Sometimes you have to change your dimension, your approach, or even the research question because of, again, certain risks that make your proposal, your proposed research unviable. Yeah, but you can, for every risk, you want to say how you will be mitigating and how does that not affect the entire research. It could be a risk just affecting one research question or just a bit of it, and you're like, oh, we can ride on the other things that we're doing. So it's very important to demonstrate that.
I think I will skim through these questions because there are many. So how can self-employed early career researchers get the institutional affiliation that most funders require in grant applications?
Yeah, if you're a researcher and you're self-employed, I imagine you would be like a consultant. So your company is actually your institution of affiliation, unless it is not legally registered or it does not qualify. So in that case, you read that already and you attach yourself to an institution by getting collaborators, or you then become a co-applicant if they require that the main applicant has to be in that affiliation which you're quoting. So I think I've answered the question.
Okay, and then there is one from our chat. Why should one go through gruesome experience to win a grant? Do you think the rules will change with AI world, considering that jobs or work will be taken away from researchers?
That's for the time to tell, but I think things are changing. Like I mentioned earlier, previously, our grandfathers, the first researchers, the first academia people, I think suffered more than what we are going through. I'm not saying it's even easier. I mean, you put up a very competitive, what you consider yourself as in, wow, this is a nice proposal, and you feel so confident about it. But then you have to go through the gruesome experience that you have stayed, do the interviews, and even when you do the interviews, it's a competition. They want 3 people and you're 10, and all the proposals are good. Sometimes even the funders are in a dilemma, and then they start discussing with you if you are willing for your proposal to be sent to another call or to be dual funded. So I think what makes that whole system painful is there's not enough money to do all the things us researchers want to do, even when we do our best to present researchers. The disclaimer is make sure your grant is good and it competes or outcompetes everything else. So my point here is with time, things become easier, and I'm not saying that you are going to end up leaving it to AI. You just punch in your title and then AI will give you the rationale, justification, etc. Maybe not. You have to still be in control of the work that you're doing, because at the end of the day, there's a limit to AI. AI is a program. Someone has put information in there, but you want to understand and you want to reason and you want to be to drive the research that you want to do. So you can't really think that AI will do that for you. So I have to say, I think, sorry, we don't think we'll go there. AI has a limit how much it can be used and used well in research.
Okay. Yes. Is it possible for a funder to adjust the deadlines on request?
In the mainstream, no, but that said, I've seen funders call applicants. I'd say, oh, I think your idea was good, but again, different funders. Some funders, strictly deadline is deadline. Other funders can discuss, and other funders, if it's like unsolicited or solicited, like some funding comes when you meet a funder at a conference and you discuss, and then they're like, oh, send us, and then they can give you a deadline to send your concept. And then for some reason, maybe you got hiccups, the head of department is on leave, etc. They can hear that. But I have had my personal experience where that grant I was talking about, where I was submitting and something happened in the system. At the last minute, everyone is submitting, so the system is just overloaded. So at 1800 they closed, and then when my computer, it continued to rotate, it actually didn't get submitted. I fainted. But then there was, I mean, it's not life and death. So I contacted our development office, and then they contacted the funder, and the next day they reopened for me to submit. But kindly don't get to that level, because the pressure, the adrenaline might kill you before you even appeal for that. So yeah, just do the right thing, give yourself time.
Okay, I think I will wrap up with 2 more questions so that I can hand it back to Bernard. So there is one question here that says, what makes a good letter of intent?
Sorry, I forgot I have my colleagues and I can see them. I want to throw that to one of my colleagues. Estelle, do you want to help with that? What makes a good letter of intent?
Thank you, Margaret. I was mostly here to make sure that the French speakers understand we have a next presentation. Yeah, oui, je vois Yumandi qui a écrit, je vais le dire en français. Est-ce qu'il y a une présentation qui va se faire en français? Oui, on a dit le 29, comme Bernard a dit, il y a le 29. Il y aura une présentation similaire en français. Donc, il faut demander à vos collègues de rejoindre également le séminaire le 29. Now, let me continue in English now. Now, to Margaret, that was a great presentation, and I really like the comments on the chat, and actually further questions. Even this insight around how AI can be used, I think is something that we really need to really dwell into. But what can make a good letter of intent? I think, as Margaret said, you can respond to that by going back again to the whole presentation. It's really what is the objective of your research. You have to be able to sell an idea, and selling an idea is really an art. And that's why we're saying it's really important to train, to take all the opportunities that we get for capacity strengthening, and to develop actually winning proposal, meaning knowing the art of writing, knowing what is required for you, knowing what the funders want to fund, and be able to write something that is fundable. That's what I think I can say in short word. But I think we created this community of practice with this research hub. So take all the chances that are available. This is an excellent one that we're offering, especially for researchers in Francophone Africa. So come listen to those seminars, and then we'll have an off session to show you how to write those winning proposals. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Estelle. Yes.
Thank you so much, Margaret and Estelle. I think I will bring it back to Bernard, who can give his final remarks as we close.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nampija, Topista, and Estelle. Estelle, I'm also learning French, so next time I'll be able to respond to what you say in French. And thank you, participants, for coming in huge numbers. At some point, we hit around 900 participants, and that has showed that there is great interest in writing grants, and not only writing grants, but writing grants that will bring resources to individuals and also to institutions. So this conversation is not going to end here. We are going to have a community of practice. The link, we've shared the link, so keep on trying that link. The system was overwhelmed because all of you decided to log in at the same time. But it's also a good problem to us, because it's also going to help us to beef it up so that in future it can accommodate even more than 1,000 logging in at the same time. So within that community of practice, we can share, because it's going to bring in different people who've been winning grants, the early career researchers, and maybe people in the academics and also the funders, so that we can be able to share experiences there and also sharpen our skills in terms of writing grants that will ultimately lead to winning. Yeah, so I think that's it from my end. So keep on looking for more of these kinds of training. And as I said, we have another training that has been scheduled for May 29 this year, and this one is going to be in French. So we encourage the people from Francophone nations to be able to join, to be able to attend. And if you know French and you don't come from those countries, we are not going to lock you out. You can still join so that you can also hear it in French. Then on June 26th, we are going to have another one in English. So that one will build on this. And then we're also going to have the French one on July 31st. So I encourage that you keep on following our social media handles, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, the Facebook, so that you can always keep in touch. And I can promise you, we have a lot that is in store for you. So keep on checking our sites. And in case you have any questions, you can always ask us and we'll be able to respond. I think I've said everything, Topista.
Yes, thank you so much, Bernard. And thank you everyone for joining in, for participating, and for all your questions. This was a very interactive webinar, and looking forward to the next upcoming one in French. And also thank you to our facilitator, Margaret, and also for Estelle stepping in and helping us with our Francophone speakers. That has been really great. So thank you everyone so much, and do have yourselves a lovely afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are. Thank you.